Wow. I always love getting up after a talk when you're in one of those meditations and you just don't feel like doing anything but sitting here. Oh, well, number one, I have to, I start off by just an amazing thank you for having me. And Leah, was definitely a thank you for Linda and Alan for encouraging us to come out. The majority of my time, like Michael had mentioned, has been spent at Unity, and that's where I was originally played with the fundamental side of things this lifetime, which was kind of an interesting trip. So I spent my first 15 or 16 years actually, quote unquote, being a Bible thumper, and that was a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden my mom started going to these funny classes when I was 16 years old at this new place in the other side of the state called Unity of Livonia, and started going to those classes as well. And that opened up and changed a whole new thing for me. And so for 35 years I've spent at Unity, and one of the things that I love about Unity, and I also have to say I'm also truly appreciating about this, is that Unity encourages you to play with your own spirituality. In other words, Unity encourages you to spend some time to get to know what's going on inside of here. And it doesn't judge, and it just loves, and it's unconditional. And from the first time I came in here and I heard John speak, I just loved that message. So I really appreciate that, and I want to honor the space, because I think of all the places that I've attended and all my walks and all the things that I've done, I've never seen somebody embrace it like you guys do here. And I really appreciate and I honor that. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about self-love and the trip and my experience of that and what's the road that it's taken me down. Because in the last 6 to 7 months, it's kind of one of those things where all of a sudden, like we all have in our life when we're really listening to what's going on and we're paying attention, all of a sudden Spirit kind of knocked on my door and just said, hey, we've got something we want you to pay attention to. Has anybody had that experience with Spirit when you're really into it, you're really playing it? We all have. And the thing that was really funny is when the thought of self-love came to me, the thing that blew me away, my question to Spirit was like, I've been doing this for 35 years. Self-love? Really? Isn't it kind of basic? And here's the funny thing. Spirit came back to me and Spirit said, wrong question. Wrong question, Mike. The question isn't it basic? The question is, are you doing it? And that changed everything for me. And so my path to the road that I've taken in the last 6 to 7 months, I'm just going to share with you some of those things. I think, and I wanted to thank Chad, by the way, for doing that piece on self-love, because it helps. But I think what we'll find is that everybody, when you pull up self-love, you're going to find a different definition for what it means. There's different pieces of it that everybody talks about. One of the things that we're going to talk about, and that was mentioned a couple weeks ago, is we're going to be doing a full seminar, just so everybody knows, in a couple weeks on Saturday morning, where we're going to dig into this a little bit deep, but we're going to share some things with you tonight. But one of the things is that when it comes to self-love, you have to understand something, is that we write our own book. I mean, I can sit there and talk about different things that I do, and then I could ask you what it is that you do. But ultimately what it's going to come down to, and when you know you're doing it right, is you're going to feel this amazing sense of connection with that part of us, that divine part of us, that knows. And it's kind of like it wakes up and it goes, wow, you're finally paying attention to me. Because you have to understand, that part of us, that divinity, that piece that's within us, it's connected to universal wisdom, universal understanding, universal knowledge. It knows exactly what you need, when you need it, how you need it, and in what form and what shape. It absolutely knows, because we're all connected to that divinity. And when you start to listen to that and you start to play with that, the things that you're able to do will blow your mind. Crazy things. I mean, simple little things. I'll give you a great example. We're sitting here tonight, and all of a sudden, we have a book that shows up. It's a book that I read about on the internet about a week and a half. And Phyllis walks in, she hands it to Leah, and I was thinking about ordering the book, right? And all of a sudden, Phyllis walks up and she says, hey, Leah, by the way, I want to, this is for you and Michael. If you guys would just, here's a little book that you can have, if you guys wanted to read it. That's what I'm talking about when you're connected and you're flowing. Things like that happen. It was a thought that I had. I said, hey, that'd be pretty cool for that to happen. And all of a sudden, poof, it happens. And it's right there. That's light. That's love. That's power. That's your divinity. And that's what we're talking about here when we talk about self-love, at least for me. And so those are some of the things that I wanted to share with you this evening. The first thing I wanted to mention about self-love is real simple. It is absolutely, unquestionably, it's a practice. When it's done correctly, it's an actual practice that you're doing all the time. When I was here for the Easter service, I was sitting there listening to John, and John was saying the idea of the discipline of exercise, and the discipline of eating, and the discipline of the spirituality, and those kinds of things. I guarantee you, I didn't ask him specifically, but if I did, I guarantee you he would have said it's stuff that's done on a regular basis. On a regular basis. And I really believe that when it comes to self-love, when you're really talking about it, you're doing it on a regular basis. Whether it's meditation, whether it's whatever it is, whatever your discipline is, it's being done. It's an act. It's not something that just happens randomly. It's not just like one day you do it and then the next day, you think about this stuff a month and a half later. I don't know how many people here have a meditation practice. I don't know how many people have a prayer practice. I don't know how many people have these different disciplines in their life. But one thing that I'm being shown very clearly for Mike personally, and again, this is me, is that the power of being disciplined in my meditation, in my prayer, in the different exercise, in my eating and stuff like that. And it's like this massive piece of me, it's just saying, don't you get it? That the more attention that you pay and give inside of your soul, and you start to nourish it, well, it almost feels like this. It's almost like I got this little baby in my hands. And the little baby's called Mike's soul. And that little soul needs to be nourished. It needs to be loved. It needs to be listened to. And the more I nourish it, and the more I take care of it, through my discipline of meditation, through my discipline of prayers, through my different disciplines, it's almost like this thing is growing into this huge ball of energy within me that just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And when John was talking about that, it just resonated so much within me with the self-love piece that I just said, that's exactly what it's about. This idea of loving ourselves and giving ourselves a space and feeding our soul what our soul truly needs. Not what anybody else needs. And I thought it was great with those things that you read. It's not what anybody else needs. It's what you need. And it's amazing when you answer your soul and do what your soul asks it to do. It actually will acknowledge you back. That's the amazing thing when you have this connection and you have this communication going on with your soul. It's this back and forth thing. But the first thing I just wanted to mention to you, it is an act. And I would encourage, if you don't have some type of self-loving act, whatever that's called, and if you don't want to call it discipline, I know that freaks some people out, whatever you call it, if anything, just take a minute, 1 minute a day, and just sit down and ask yourself a very simple question. What do you need? What do you need? What's going on? And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. A little bit more about that in a minute. So, number one, it's an act. And it's an act that when we do it, for me, when I do it the right way, it's something I'm doing on a regular basis. And I also know it's an act that's developed. In other words, I'm continuously adding more and more and more and more and more to it. It's truly amazing, especially as I get older. I'm doing different things differently than I did 30 years ago in a lot of different ways. And it's not just that, it's also the people I talk with, the people I hang out with. It's just a lot of things. In other words, I'm just being drawn to a whole different set of circumstances and people and things and situations. And it's amazing to me the way the universe is responding as well. That's what makes this fun. Because in my opinion, and what I'm being shared to believe, is your divinity is supposed to be a pretty cool thing. And God likes to have a really, really, really good time. And I feel that when you start playing with this stuff, it just like, it's almost like, wow, he wants to play. Let's go play. And that's what you do. You just grab the stuff and you start playing with it. So it's an act. The second thing I would like to tell you is it involves 3 critically important parts of it. And these are 3 things we're going to talk about a little bit deeper in this seminar. But the first thing, number 1, is it requires you to connect. To connect with your spirit. It's a matter of taking the time to sit down and acknowledge that light, to acknowledge that soul, to acknowledge that little piece inside of you that's you, and sitting down and just saying hi. How are you? What's going on? What's happening? How are you doing today? Are you having a good day? Are you having a bad day? Do you want to take a walk? Do you want to go get a glass of water? Do you want to, maybe you need to talk to somebody. Maybe you need to pay a bill. Maybe you need to, I don't know, go see a rainbow. I don't know, whatever it is that fires you up. But the idea is to connect with that part of you and realize there's this piece of you that is alive. It's there. It's so much a part of you and so wants to be expressed. And so just the idea of spending a little bit of time every single day connecting with that part of you that's alive is amazing. And yet how many times in our life do we get busy going down the road and we're busy doing this, we're busy doing that, and we're busy taking care of everybody else, and we forget to take care of ourselves. You guys, anybody ever been there? Yeah. I think if we're honest about it, we can all say that. Now here's the most amazing part. Once you take the time to honestly connect, then there's another critically important part. What do you think that part might be if you were going to guess? Any idea?
Listen.
Bingo. Thank you. Listen. 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 And this is a huge awareness for me. Because it's like, look at your soul just wants to basically understands, okay, now this thing is connecting with me, and your soul, and really in my mind, it's the universe as well, is trying to feed you information at that point in time. It's telling you things. I mean, it can tell you from really, really basic, simple things to very, very spiritual and deep things, but it can tell you what's going on, and not only that, what you need to do, how you need to do it, who you need to see, who you need to call, where you need to be. And yet, it blows my mind, for me personally, as I walk this journey, how many times I forget to slow down and listen. And it is critical. The biggest lesson for me was there's really something it has to say. It's crazy, but it does have something to say. The question is, are we listening? And so the second part of the self-love thing that we talk about, and we spend some time on a little bit, is just this whole idea of just listening and understand what that means. And when you sit down and listen and understand that your soul is brilliant. We were created in the image and likeness of God. It's brilliant. And the information it has to share with you is brilliant. And it's just waiting for us to sit down and acknowledge it and actually listen to what it has to say. And yet we think that the news is more important. We think that other people are more important. We think that books are more important. And we get caught up in this massive thing to try and find the stuff all out here on what we need to do with our lives through the books and the teachers and everything else like that. And the truth is, the greatest teacher of all, as we all know, is within. But here's the thing. If we're not taking time to listen to the greatest teacher of all, then what are we doing? So it's just a matter of sitting down and listening. The third part of it is we've slowed down, we've connected, yay. Now we've listened, so we sat down, made the list on what we need to do, and guess what the third part is? Take action. Take action. So it's a matter of sitting down and taking action, and I can tell you in my own life, there's been times when I've gotten that information down, I've gotten and received it, but the thing is, when it comes to put your feet to the pavement, it's like there's this, anybody have this? There's a stall factor. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And it's really funny because you get this amazing message and you're sitting there and you're feeling it in your heart. And you're like, oh, yes, 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 I got this. And then there's like, you're just like, and it's like there's this pause factor. And then what happens? You pause and then what happens? We know this. What happens? We start doing what?
Doubt.
Well, I don't know. Do you really think I should go talk to that person? Should I really start looking for another job? Do I need to go see this other person about my foot? And guess what happens? Then all of a sudden the ego starts to take over, and then it starts to put a bunch of doubt in there, and then all of a sudden, guess what happens? The message goes, whoop. And that's what happens. And then all of a sudden this brilliant thing that was given to you directly from Source is basically shut down. And then it all of a sudden looks and goes, well, I don't get this, or I thought we gave you this beautiful piece of information to really help you and everything like that, and what are you doing with it? And it just sits there, and it's hard. And then all of a sudden we get stuck, and then there's other things that come up in our lives. So those pieces, the connection, the listening, and the acting are the critical parts of it. But they all three have in common one thing. They all take what?
Trust.
I heard dedication, yes?
Time.
Thank you. Okay. So they all take time. So of course, me, I'm working on the stuff and I'm putting it together, and the idea is, okay, so what's my question to Spirit? It takes time. Guess what I ask? How much? Don't we all ask? How much? Right? Isn't that what we do? How much time do we take? And Spirit goes, Mike. The question isn't, how much time does it take? A better question would be, and I want you to hear this, are you worth it? Do you feel that? My question to you is, are you worth it? And so I want to share with you a couple of readings in when I started going through this stuff. There's a couple authors that have been a wonderful part of this journey with me. And I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with Brene Brown. She wrote a book called The Gifts of Imperfection. It's a beautiful book. Strongly suggest it if you're interested. But one of the parts she talks about is worthiness. And she says the following. Love and belonging are essential to the human experience. As I conduct my interviews, I realize that only one thing separated the men and women who felt a deep sense of love and belonging from the people who seemed to be struggling for it. The one thing is a belief in their worthiness. It's as simple and complicated as this. If we want to fully experience love and belonging, we must believe that we are worthy of love and belonging. When we can let go of what other people think and own our own story, we gain access to our worthiness, the feeling that we are enough just as we are and that we are worthy of love and belonging. When we spend a lifetime trying to distance ourselves from the parts of our lives that don't fit in with who we think we're supposed to be, we stand outside of our story and hustle for our worthiness by constantly performing, perfecting, pleasing, and proving. Anybody ever do that? I have. Our sense of worthiness, that critical, important piece that gives us access to love and belonging, lives inside of our story. The greatest challenge for most of us is believing that we are worthy now. The greatest challenge for most of us is believing that we are worthy right now. Worthiness does not have prerequisites. So many of us have knowingly created, or allowed, been handed down a long list of worthiness prerequisites. I'll be worthy when I lose 20 pounds. I'll be worthy if I can get pregnant. I'll be worthy if I can get or stay sober. I'll be worthy if someone else thinks I'm a good parent. And on and on and on. Here's what is truly at the heart of worthiness. Worthy now. Worthy now. Not if, not when. We are worthy of love and belonging now. Right this minute. As is. And when I read that, and then I stopped, and I thought about it, and I felt it, and my soul truly embraced it, and my soul truly felt it, I would encourage you to spend a few seconds, not right now, but in your own time, and just feel, if you really feel, that right this minute, right here, right now, that you are worthy? Or do you have a bunch of prerequisites where you need to sit down and add, I got to do this, I got to be better at this. I got to meditate better. Oh, I need to pray better. No. Your soul is perfect. You are whole, you are perfect, you are complete, right here, right now. Right now. The only one who thinks that you're not perfect, whole, and complete is you. God's got it figured out. Spirit knows. Right now. Spirit knows what's going on. And so I just think that's such a beautiful piece, because I think that depending on how you were brought up, depending on how you grew up, depending on who you surround yourselves with, that can be a huge, huge, huge piece. So worthiness is a piece. Another person I want to share with you, and this is so much fun, and I was so disappointed I didn't get to see her, but I just am in love with this woman. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with Anita Morjani, because you guys brought her here. I just wish I could have saw her. I read her book after she was here. And then I found out when you guys brought her, I was like, oh my God. This is just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. So I ask you to humor me while I read some of the stuff that she said about self-love, because this is really what started it. This is what really got me on the path and started understanding, truly digging into the self-love stuff and start really practicing it and connecting and listening and acting. And so I'm just going to share a few things with you. It's all very well for me to talk about healing after I've experienced it, or for me to tell you to just trust and let go, letting the flow of life take over. But when you're going through a really low period, it's difficult to do, or even to know where to begin. However, I think the answer is simpler than it seems, and it's one of the best kept secrets of our time: the importance of self-love. You may frown or cringe at the thought, but I can't stress enough how important it is to cultivate a deep love affair with yourself. I love that. I just love that. I don't recall ever being encouraged to cherish myself. In fact, it would never have even occurred to me to do so. It's commonly thought of as being selfish, but my near-death experience allowed me to realize that this was the key to my healing. Self-love also means being aware of the importance of nurturing my own soul, taking care of my own needs, and not putting myself last all the time. This allows me to be true to myself at all times and to treat myself with total respect and kindness. It also lets me view what may be interpreted as imperfections as mistakes with no judgment, seeing only opportunities to experience and to learn with unconditional love. And so obviously with Anita, I mean, she really embraced that stuff. So one of the last things I want to share with you is just, I talk about this stuff, but also understand that, to me, this is something that I live. It's not something I just get up and talk about. I mean, I really work this stuff to the best of my ability, like we all do, right? So I just want to share with you, and this happened a couple weeks ago, but there was some work that I was doing, and it was absolutely a crazy time. And I have a very strict, rigid discipline in the morning, speaking of disciplines. And, I get up in the morning, I go through, actually I take my dog for a walk first thing, and then I get a big fat cup of coffee, but then I do about a 25-minute meditation, then I'm going to read some stuff, and then I'm going to start writing some stuff. It's very disciplined, and I've been doing it for a long time. And work was crazy. We've all had them. It's one of those weeks where you're just absolutely going nuts. You're just busy. You don't have time to do a lot of stuff. You're just go, 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 go. You're talking 11, 12-hour days, back to back to back to back to back. Yet every morning, I'm up at 5, and let's go. We're going to do this thing. And I got up in the morning, and I am dragging. I'm dragging. And I just, I'm sitting down, I take the dog for a walk. Okay, get a cup of coffee, a few sips. That's doing nothing. I'm like, all right, we're going to really sit down and do this meditation thing. Yep, we're going to do a meditation. Do the meditation. That does nothing. And all of a sudden, I'm getting ready to kick into my next little thing, and I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden, I just said to myself, what? Is there anything that I can do right now? And overwhelmingly, and it just felt, I just knew this, my soul just said, can we just sit here? Can we just sit for a minute? I don't want books. I don't want coffee. I don't want anything. I just want to sit here for a minute. Can we just sit here for a minute? And I'm not kidding you. I'm sitting at my dining room table, and I clear my space, and I just literally put my head down like that. And after a minute or two, I'm sitting there, and it's like, okay. that feels pretty good. And then another minute or two goes by and it's like, okay, that's feeling better. And then all of a sudden, and I'm not kidding you, it was like all at once, it was literally, here's what it felt like. I felt like angels came down and just I was enveloped in this ball of light and I was just hugged. It was an amazing experience. It was absolutely amazing experience. And I got up and it was like everything was just gone and it was just exactly what my soul needed. It just needed to be left alone for a few minutes. And it was magical. It was just magical. And I really feel that our soul always knows. Whether we're sick, no matter what we're doing, no matter what's going on, I just feel like the more I listen to my soul and the more I pay attention to it and the more I love myself, that's really where it's coming from. And it knows. And so, one of the last things I want to share with you is just a little bit, because some people, and I already know this, that some people start thinking, well, geez, isn't that kind of, narcissistic, if you will. And I love what Anita says about that. She says, people ask me whether there's such a thing as too much self-love. Where's the line, they ask, where it starts to become selfish or egotistical? To me, there is no such possibility. None. There's no line. Selfishness comes from a lack of self-love, which is the opposite of what we've been taught. Our planet is suffering from this, as we humans are, along with too much insecurity, judgment, and conditioning. In order to truly care for someone unconditionally, I have to feel that way towards myself. I can't give away what I don't have. To say that I hold another in higher regard than myself isn't real, and it means I'm only performing. It means I'm only performing. So in closing, I just want to leave this with you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me here, for having us here. Self-love, it's an act where your soul is finally heard. It's finally felt. It's finally connected. And it's finally honored. It's finally able to express its wants, its needs, its preferences, its fears, its love, its happiness, without any judgment, but only love. Self-love means listening to your soul and responding with love. Thank you.